We last left off at my campsite in the Brooks Memorial State Park. Arising early on a brisk, cool morning, I first enjoyed a hot shower before making coffee and breaking camp. It was time to get on my way and travel west for a 4-day visit to the Columbia River Gorge area, just a short 22 miles away. Formed some 40 to 60 million years ago, the Columbia River Gorge is a canyon that stretches 80 miles from Roosevelt, Washington to Vancouver, Washington. Following my iPhone navigation directions and not realizing that I had dropped my GPS connection to Gaia, my arrival at the gorge came up quickly. Before being able to adjust to my location, I found myself on a route that crossed Columbia River over the Sam Hill Memorial Bridge into Oregon and onto the interstate, instead of staying on the Washington side of the river. After a lengthy detour, I finally made it back onto the Washington side in the much more scenic Route 14, better known as the Lewis and Clark Trail Scenic Byway. I planned out a number of options for activities during my visit, including hikes, bike rides, and waterfall and wildflower photography. My entire goal for the day was to drive the highway and scout out some of the areas I wanted to visit in the days to come. I covered most of the 80 miles, stopping several times to take in the beautiful scenery before me. Late in the afternoon, I took advantage of stopping at and hiking up the 848-foot Beacon Rock, a basalt plug of an ancient volcano right on the edge of the Columbia River and next to my campground. An easy hike made up of what seemed to be a never-ending stream of switchbacks, the trail wound its way up to the top, offering great views of the river and the gorge below. Although I have limited video, here are a couple of photographs from my hike. Weather for this morning was forecast to be cloudy with possible showers and then sunny later in the afternoon, so I wanted an activity suited for the day. Just a few hundred yards from my campsite was the trailhead for a 2.9-mile round-trip hike to Hardy Falls and Rodney Falls with only 400 feet of elevation gain. This was perfect. Other than setting up the GoPro with the wrong ND filter and therefore getting some poor quality footage, sorry about that. The trail was a pleasant one through the woods and up the Hamilton Mountain Trail. Hadley Falls wasn't all that impressive, but Rodney Falls, along with the Pool of Winds, was very nice. It was a good way to spend the morning. After my hike, weather began to improve, and I decided to head toward Dallas Mountain Road about 50 miles east of the Beacon Rock campground to do some wildflower photography. Just before coming to the town of White Salmon, I looked right and noticed an uninterrupted view of Mount Hood. In my excitement to get a photo, I actually forgot to take video, but still I wanted to share my image so that you could see what I was lucky enough to see. Everything I had read before my trip highly recommended a trip up Dallas Mountain Road if I wanted to see and photograph the renowned wildflower fields of Washington in the area. So that is where I headed. Dallas Mountain Road is a dusty gravel ride climbing more than 1,800 feet in elevation, of which the first 8 miles is the main attraction. On both sides, there are large open fields of what once was a large cattle ranch. Today, about half the land is part of the Columbia Hills Historical State Park. The park of 2,450 acres houses the Crawford House and a number of preserved buildings and historical equipment. It is now known as the Dallas Mountain Ranch. Although I knew that peak season had passed in this area, I was expecting to still see some patches of late bloom of purple lupin and yellow arrowleaf balsam root. Unfortunately, there was very little remaining. I could only find one picturesque patch of yellow arrowleaf, and here is that picture. The challenge today was going to be both the weather and the destination. Rain was in the forecast for most of the day, so I needed to select an activity that would work in at least a drizzle. I selected from my pre-planned list of options a hike to photograph a waterfall, since waterfalls, at least wooded ones, don't require sunny days. I set out to hike to Rock Creek Falls, a place I had found while doing my research and clearly marked on my Gaia map via the Tarbell Trail. My drive to the trailhead took me on a long dirt forest road. Other than the rain that occasionally fell, it was a beautiful ride. One cautionary note, be careful with names. There can be multiple locations with similar names. You see, there was another Rock Creek Falls, also commonly referred to as the Upper and Lower Creek Falls. It was located in Stevenson, Washington, a very different spot. Unfortunately, I wouldn't figure that out until I returned home. Upon reaching the trailhead, I began my journey on what was going to be a 3.6-mile round-trip hike. The first signage I came to along the Tarbell Trail indicated nothing about the Rock Creek Falls, but instead pointed to one called the Hidden Falls. Checking on my map, I found the Hidden Falls further up the Tarbell Trail. It looked to be about double the length of the hike to Rock Creek. Okay, a second option to keep in mind. The hike was an easy one with very little elevation change, and the rain was holding off. As I reached the sound of flowing water, I approached the sign that indicated I had reached Rock Creek headwaters. Still nothing about Rock Creek Falls. Crossing the bridge, I was met with a pretty, but less than photogenic scene. Double-checking my Gaia map, I was clearly at the Rock Creek Falls marking. A bit disappointed, and still with plenty of energy given the easy hike, I decided to proceed to Hidden Falls, which I estimated to be another couple of miles. The route would peak at about 3,000 feet and take me through several areas of cut timber, exposing me to the elements. Today they offered only clouds, but in nice weather, I bet the views were wonderful. After about 2 miles in, I had to make a choice. All the switchbacks were adding mileage, and to reach the waterfall I had to go another 1.5 miles and descend about 900 feet. Not bad going down, but I would have to ascend on my return trip with a heavy camera bag. Having gone this far, I wasn't giving up. I eventually made it down and found a beautiful waterfall, something I could photograph. Just as I arrived, the rain began to fall. Undeterred, I got my photographs, but there would be no leisurely rest time. It was time to head back. It rained, sometimes turning to sleet most of the way back. Although I was drenched and tired by the time I returned to the Jeep, I was also exhilarated. I had unexpectedly hiked 10.6 miles in bad weather, but reached an equally unexpected destination worthy of the trip. Now I needed to dry off. This was my last day in the Columbia River Gorge area. Tomorrow, I would be heading west to the Olympic Peninsula with a one-day stop at Cape Disappointment. I promised myself a bike ride on this leg of the trip, and today I would do just that. With the sun out, I decided to ride the Clickety Tat Trail, a 31-mile rail trail from Lyle to the Golden Dale Plateau. It was rated an easy trail enjoyed by hikers, runners, and dog owners, in addition to bikers, although I only saw bikers after the first mile. The scenery on the Clickety Tat Trail was wonderful, with the Clickety Tat River running alongside the trail the whole way. At one point along the trail, I came across a cow and her calf strolling on the trail. I tried keeping my distance not to frighten the calf or upset its mother. I have ridden road bikes my whole life, but this was my first long ride on a mountain bike which I had just purchased. I quickly recognized just how different the two were. It would take a few rides to develop the right technique. By plan, I only rode the first 5 miles of the trail before doubling back. I was glad I decided on that because my legs were a bit tired from the previous day's hike. I would stop several times just to absorb the sights of the rushing river and enjoy some water and a snack before returning to the Jeep. Today, I just wanted to get in a fun ride and enjoy the scenery. I had one last thing I wanted to do while in the Columbia River area. While driving back and forth along Route 14, I noticed an area just west of White Salmon where people gathered at a small beachhead to go windboarding out on the river, and I wanted to take some photographs. Again, focused on photography, I didn't take any video, but I still wanted to share some of those photos.